So it's time for some shocking Xbox Series S news. Yes, shocking because we've got a situation where a developer that has been going pretty hard on Xbox Series S for months. He was complaining about the lack of power and memory and specs. Now all of a sudden says that the extra work put in optimization of their game for Xbox Series S actually pays off in a better version of the same game for Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5 and PC. Shocking, right? Yes, and it all makes sense really. Now, the game we're talking about here is Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm sure you all remember all the criticism that Xbox Series S received from the developers of that game, at least some of the developers of that game. And now today I'm going through some of the tweets on Twitter, X, and this is what I read here. So Okani Games actually shared a link to PC Gamer article. And basically this article talks about some of the kind of findings that developers of Baldur's Gate 3 shared on Twitter. So basically, Baldur's Gate 3 developers found a 34% VRAM optimization while developing the Xbox Series S port. This could directly benefit performance for the PC, Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 versions as well. Now, this is just the tweet, and there's obviously the full article, and there's actually kind of nice breakdown of what has been done with VRAM and standard RAM. So there's graphs that actually shows how developers were optimizing the game for Xbox Series S through a couple of months, and the graphs started at the beginning of September with the game using just over 5.2 gigabytes for general game RAM and around 3.5 gigabytes for VRAM. By November, so 2 months later, though, Larian, so developers of the game, had shaved this down to 4.7 gigabytes from 5.2 for the general RAM and 2.3 for VRAM. So, especially the VRAM saving is actually pretty big. The RAM reduction is pretty decent, 10%. But the reduction in VRAM usage is a massive 34%. So, and it's all just extra work put in optimization for Xbox Series S. And now the whole thing about, making like this optimization work, making other versions of the game actually better, that kind of makes sense too. And, this is what the actual developer said, that got a nice present from our engineers, ensuring memory is well under control, and having buffer for peaks was the main thing holding us back. I think this will benefit all platforms too. Still some work left, but very close now. So looks like they may actually even get that better. And so why is it so important, and why does this really kill the whole narrative about Xbox Series S holding this generation back? Well, basically what it is that, Xbox Series S is low power next generation console. It's not as powerful as Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5 or like high-end PC, but it's good enough basically to do all the stuff that developers want to achieve with next generation games for the most part, right? Now, obviously, this is a low power machine, so you really have to be careful how you manage resources. And resources as in GPU power, memory, utilization, CPU power, and all that kind of stuff. Basically everything that console has to offer, right? In terms of computation. And basically if you don't really pay attention to how you code and how you use some of the features and that kind of stuff, well, you may just, it works, so why should I spend more time optimizing if it if it works, right? And you may not see any incentive to actually put some extra work in optimizing and maybe making that better. Basically then you get a game that at launch may, kind of run okay for the most part, but may get some frame dips here and there. And Baldur's Gate is not on Xbox yet, but on PlayStation. Not only it runs, I think it's locked to 30. Is there a 60 frames per second mode? I can't remember. But even 30 frames per second mode drops frames in certain sections of the game, and this all has to do with optimization, right? I mean, what the thing that this developer said, right, is very important, because he did say that ensuring memory is well under control and having buffer for peaks has the main thing holding us back. So basically what he's saying is that now, thanks to these extra memory optimization, which will be applied to Xbox Series S, obviously, Xbox Series X too, but some of them probably for PlayStation 5 and PC too, right? So that means that there's going to be more of a buffer for situations where there's more things going on. So for example, that infamous chapter 3, I think, in Baldur's Gate 3, that runs kind of not really well on console like PlayStation 5, but even on PC it kind of drops frames. So who knows, maybe these extra optimizations will allow for this particular section to run much better, right? This is just an example. I'm not necessarily saying that this particular optimization will make this kind of difference, right? I'm just saying that it may. And this is the thing, right? Like, these optimizations may, kind of makes these games better on other platforms too, because having developers having to deal with Xbox Series S low power and memory restraints, they have to be very careful how they code and what they use and everything, right? So they not going to be as I don't want to say clumsy, but they will really have to be very careful how they use resources, right? And like any type of optimization made for Xbox Series S, will probably benefit other platforms too. So really what Xbox Series S does in this particular case is that it makes the game better overall on all platforms, really, right? And that's good. Like, technically speaking, that's good. Now, obviously, it doesn't change anything gameplay-wise. And this is actually another example where you've got a developer that, starts developing a game for Xbox Series S. They complain about lack of power and not enough of resources and limited budget and not enough of VRAM. And then you play the game and it runs just great, right? And that's a good example would be Alan Wake 2 as well. Remedy has been pretty vocal how difficult it is to work with Xbox Series S, in a sense that it just needs extra work, right? And it is what it is, guys. Like, listen, if you want to make a game for a particular platform, you have to deliver that title for both Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S, right? And yes, some things will have to be reduced and cut out, maybe, like ray tracing. Ray tracing is not in Alan Wake on consoles anyway, but some other things probably. And then you hear these developers constantly complaining about Xbox Series S, and then their game is just about to launch, and you think to yourself, okay, so this game on Xbox Series S is probably going to be crap and it's not really going to run well, right? Because they've been complaining about Xbox Series S so much that you kind of think to yourself, like, yeah, they probably didn't really do well with Xbox Series S and in this game. And then you play Alan Wake 2 on Xbox Series S and it runs fine. It actually looks pretty good. Resolution is actually not too bad. It's locked 30 frames per second. Graphics looks actually pretty good too. So what's the point of all this complaining? And I don't know, maybe I'm just paying too much attention to these complaints. I know that other people just don't care about it. They just wait for the game to come out. And maybe that's my fault a little bit too, right? I'm just kind of picky and I kind of, but that's the thing. That's what I do. I read interviews and I read what developers say about consoles, engines, and that kind of stuff. But hey, at the end of the day, they complained, but they also did that extra work. They optimized their game for Xbox Series S, and it works well. So I'm pretty sure that when it comes to Baldur's Gate 3, which is apparently coming still this year, that's probably going to be a similar situation like with Alan Wake 2. All of that complained, I guess it doesn't necessarily means nothing, but it's like, I mean, who cares about this complaining, right? If the game will run well anyway. Like, I mean, what's the point of all these complaints if all you have to do as a developer is just put that extra work, right? I mean, I understand complaints when you trying to force a company to do stuff, but if the work that has to be done is on your side, I mean, I guess maybe the only thing you can complain about is really yourself and your, I don't know, it's just kind of weird to me, right? But anyway, guys, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. It's actually a good news really for Xbox, for Xbox Series S, but other platforms too, I guess, because developers will really have to be careful how they manage resources when it comes to these, console games. So, in a weird twist of events, Xbox Series S may actually be beneficial for this generation. It's kind of crazy how things roll sometimes on these Twitter streets, right? But anyway, guys, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about it. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.